Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. I'm Bird's Eye View Politics, and in this channel we take a bird's eye view look at geopolitical affairs. So in this video I'm going to be covering the recent last week or so of the war in Ukraine, particularly focusing on the new Moldovan updates as well as the overall ammunition counts that the Ukrainians have been worried about, as well as new plans for offensives from both sides, Russia in the next few months and Ukraine maybe in 3 or 4 months, edging closer to late spring, early summer. So let's get into it. First, we have to talk about the recent battlefield moves. Now, nothing's really changed on the front line except for this key point around Bakhmut. Now, Bakhmut, of course, as I've said before, you can watch my other videos, it's a key supply point on this railroad right here, and it is going to be hugely important for any side that wants to launch any further offensives, either southeast from the Ukrainian point of view or northwest from the Russian point of view. Russians trying to take this major railway here that would give them control of almost all of northern Donetsk, while the Ukrainians, of course, would just try and get back into this heavily industrialized region in eastern Donetsk and southwestern Luhansk. Now, we have had some conclusive changes overall to the front, but mostly it's stuck. Right now, the Russians are angling to take it before the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine, and it looks increasingly likely that they are not going to be able to successfully take the whole city, although it could fall later after the deadline for that 1-year anniversary, maybe in a few weeks or a month or so. Russia has already begun their offensive, which is what many people had already been saying, and Zelensky conceded that yes, the Russians had begun their offensive. We just think that it's going significantly worse than would otherwise have been expected, especially considering in the early stages of the war, Russia was able to take almost the entirety of Luhansk in about a month. So that's the updates from the front line. Now we have a bunch of updates not from the front line. Number one, we have the United States officially declaring Russia has committed crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Now, that is a major change to previous United States policy. Previously, we've had off-the-cuff remarks from people like Joe Biden saying that Russia was committing genocide, among other things. And the United States has always walked these back, saying, oh, we don't mean we are calling it genocide, or in another case for Biden with a potential just off-the-cuff remark, where he said that regime change would probably have to happen before any peace agreement in Ukraine. That was walked back as well. But now this is something that the United States is not walking back. It's become official government policy that the United States has declared that Russia's committed crimes against humanity in Ukraine. Now, pretty much every Democrat and even most Republicans are behind this view. There's only a few on the very fringe right of the Republican Party who have attacked this, so this is likely to remain the United States policy for the duration of the war, barring some extremely major changes. However, something much closer to the battlefield is the dwindling ammunition stockpiles, especially of Ukrainian artillery, and it's been noticed because Russia has been essentially attacking Ukrainian forces, particularly focusing on airstrikes against supply depots. And while none of these have been very successful, over time they have been taking their toll, and with the Ukrainians needing to fight back with ammunition of their own, this means that Ukraine has a very, very quickly dwindling ammo stockpile. So NATO is going to have to supply Ukraine with more ammunition, and look for that in the coming weeks as the Russian offensive ramps up. Now, we also had news about a Ukrainian offensive. The Ukrainians are expected to conduct an offensive against Russia sometime in the spring. This is from Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin of the United States, and this probably means it is going to happen, because he can say that it's not supposed to happen or it can happen, and usually you would say, well, the United States is allied with Ukraine, therefore we shouldn't believe it, or maybe it's got a high chance but it's not guaranteed. Well, if the United States is saying that Ukraine is expecting to conduct an offensive against Russia, then that probably means that they are planning it in advance, but they're not saying where. And it could be anywhere, as I've covered in recent videos. It could be in the northern Donetsk region, or northern Luhansk region, It could also be in this heavily industrialized region where much of the fighting has been around Bakhmut, although I don't really see how that could be achieved using the Ukrainian tactics of maneuver warfare, or it could be towards the south in the Melitopol Oblast, near Mariupol, or even down towards the Kherson Oblast, maybe even going towards the Crimea. However, we don't really know, and honestly at this point, there's no determination that can be made. The main fighting right now is a Russian offensive around Bakhmut, and they're also preparing one in this region around Zaporizhia, the city of Zaporizhia, and also in southern Donetsk. Now, we also had the Moldovan president, this is back on February 14th, so 4 days ago, accusing Russia of plotting to destabilize the country. Now, I don't need to tell you that's important because it is hugely important, especially considering the fact that the Moldovan members of parliament just got a new pro-Western prime minister during these tensions over Russia, and they have an inflation rate of 30%. So the economy in Moldova is doing very poorly right now, as is to be expected, due to two of their major trade partners, Ukraine and Russia, both being at war with each other, which has resulted in sanctions from pretty much all sides, which is causing a huge logjam, and it's a huge difficulty for Moldova to get goods, especially from Russia, because the Ukrainians are not letting those go through, of course, and Ukraine is having trouble getting some of their previous goods they would have sent to Moldova across the country as Russia attacks Ukrainian transportation. So Moldova is going to continue to struggle with this for a while, but especially considering what I said in the last few videos with the Moldovan leader, the president of Moldova, stating that they were open and even wanting to join a so-called other alliance, in this case obviously NATO or the EU. This is going to be hugely significant as to if this Moldovan new prime minister is able to succeed in fighting off inflation, then this could lead to them eventually joining Russia, joining NATO, while a failure to do so would lead to them joining Russia because the opposition parties that are pro-Russian would win the next elections, which are coming soon. Now, we also had the 10th round of EU sanctions, this is the final part of the video, against Russia to target industry, construction, and drone supply. Now, a few of these are pretty obvious. Industry, okay, it's going to be the war industry. You're talking about industries that people hadn't really thought of yet when they were doing those first few rounds of sanctions, or that countries that are more dovish in regards to Russia, such as Hungary, hadn't really wanted to see. Now, this is going to, their goal at least, is to deny the Russian economy of critical technological and industrial goods. And so this is going to be in both military industry, but also something not as expected, civilian industry, things that are seen as everyday in much of the West that Russia is now going to really struggle to get. Also drone supply, which is expected because Russia has been using drone attacks against the Ukrainians. And lastly, construction, because they do not want the Russians to be constructing anything which can help their military. So this is going to be controls on 47 electronic components that can be used in Russian weapon systems. So this will further harm Russia's military-industrial complex. So what do you think will happen next? Don't forget to leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.